We already talked about metamorphosis in the classroom for a few hours. I gave you a few ideas about how actually existentialism manifests itself in some form in Kafka. Kafka was not a existentialist theorist. He did not write anything about existentialism the way either Camus or Sartre wrote. However, when you read his works, you know that you are reading a very hardcore existentialist. Somebody who seems to believe in the fundamental principles of existentialism. You also find a tinge of absurdity in his works. It's a combination of a range of typically 20th century philosophies. It takes more than 20, 30 years for some of these extreme views to become manifest in mainstream cultural forms. But you know, Kafka anticipates all kinds of uncouth groups whose philosophies border on a certain degree of extremism. What Kafka is trying to do, we are all familiar with the term Kafkaesque, something which reads, sounds, looks like something which has come from one of the books of Kafka. Right. So, what the novel is, or novella is all about, what Metamorphosis is all about, because since I have already talked about it, I am not going to talk at length about it. We are going to discuss only a few points from the point of view of your examination. Metamorphosis is about Gregor Samsa's transformation. How Gregor Samsa finds himself transformed into a very big insect or a vermin. And how he receives his own transformation and how his family receives this kind of a change that comes in Gregor Samsa. Now, the story or the plot of the novella is very simple, you know this. Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman, one day finds that he has overslept. He woke up a bit late and found himself very uncomfortable. And on trying to find out why he was uncomfortable, he discovered that he was no longer the human being he had gone to sleep as. He did not any longer look like a human being. What has happened to Samsa? He has become a huge insect. A huge insect in the sense that he is of human size, but a perfect insect. The transformation is complete. How do you understand this? Now Samsa is late for his work. The office manager comes calling, and his parents are also worried, his mother and father, and his sister Greta. All the four of them are knocking on the door because Samsa has not shown any signs of being awake. Samsa is awake but has difficulty responding, difficulty getting to the door and opening it because he is no longer a human being. As an insect, he has difficulty. He no longer has the legs of a human being. He no longer has the hands of a human being. He has to move as an insect, and he has to stand, which is very difficult for an insect to do, and open. It takes plenty of time, and also remember it's very painful. Everyone is panicking because everyone is dependent upon what Gregor Samsa earns. He is the sole breadwinner of the family, and his losing job means a lot to them. It's a complete ruination of the entire family. So finally he opens the door with a great difficulty. The officer manager sees him. Fortunately, he doesn't faint, but he bolts, he runs away. And mother almost faints. Everyone is shocked. Their beloved family member, their son, their brother, who was normal when he went to bed yesterday night, now is no longer what he was. This is unrecognizable. How to know that? He is same Gregor Samsa was one of their family members. He no longer looks like Gregor Samsa. Even his voice now, when it comes in a distorted form. is so unrecognizable. It's so unlike that of a human being. Then how do you know that is real Gregor Samsa? Quite possible that real Gregor Samsa disappeared the previous night and somebody, some kind of a ghost, entered the room and is pretending to be Gregor Samsa. No. So now you have this transformation. The very first line is where actually the novella ends. Nothing else happens. Gregor Samsa is a human who was a human being, has become metamorphosed into an insect, and this transformation is irreversible. Changes very often come which are reversible. Talking about change, which is so the direction the transformation can move is the way to becoming worse. The family members take some time getting used to this new form, this abominable form, this obnoxious form of Gregor Samsa. It takes them time. And Gregor Samsa no longer has human requirements. He no longer likes what he used to love. He no longer likes milk. He's an insect. May be able to think like a human being, may have human being's mind, but cannot eat like a human being, cannot like what human beings like. So he stops eating what he used to eat as a human being, as Gregor Samsa. He's a perfect insect. This change, physiological change, transformation is absolutely complete. His sister Greta realizes it and she starts feeding him with all leftovers. Nothing fresh, nothing new, no fruits, no milk, which he used to love when he was a normal human being. Family members keep him confined to the room. And once Gregor Samsa becomes insect, the income of the family begins to dip. There are no earners. His father no longer works. His sister does not work. Perhaps his father borrowed some money from Gregor Samsa's employer. That is exactly the reason why actually Gregor Samsa started working for the man who had lent money to his father. Now, their financial condition begins to worsen. And also, there is a exponential decline. It's not gradual, it's almost sudden. The relationships don't change overnight, don't normally, but here the change is very quick. All of them, excepting Gregor Samsa, find themselves asking this question, all the three family members. What is this question they catch themselves asking? How are we related to this insect? How are we supposed to understand our relationship with this particular insect? How long will this continue? This is what worries all of them. What if it continues to haunt us for a long time? What is the way out? They don't see any possible solutions in the foreseeable future. Gregor Samsa becomes a perfect insect. Starts climbing walls, even starts crawling on walls and even on ceiling. One day his mother sees him crawling on a wall and immediately she faints. Now, he no longer meets his family members. There is no face-to-face encounter as such. Whenever his sister enters the room to clean it, he always hides himself under a sofa. Now, very often, Gregor Samsa, the insect, over years, his father, mother, and sister talking about the financial difficulties. It has become very severe, and they decide to take 3 boarders. They begin to take 3 boarders, they decide. And 3 boarders come, they begin to stay with the Samsas. And one day, he manages to get out of the room with a great difficulty and enters the living room, finds his sister playing piano to all these boarders, all the 3 of them. He enjoys it, but when one of the boarders spots him, he screams, he is shocked, and he wants to immediately leave the house. He no longer wants to stay in the house where, as he says, such abominable things happen, right? Because they have kept it a secret. The family has kept it a secret from everybody, neighbors, and even these boarders. The boarders see them in this disgusting form and feel very disgusted and want to leave the house immediately. So, it becomes very difficult for the family, and Greta starts working. This is the first time she has ever ventured out, but she decides that it's time she started working. Every one of them has to work. These peoples, when Samsa was working, seemed to enjoy it. They didn't have to work, they didn't have to earn. He earned for them, and they enjoyed this kind of a life, very comfortable, cozy life, which one fine day simply disappeared, leaving them in this kind of a lurch, forcing them to work, earn their livelihood for themselves. Samsa realizes that no longer any bond exists between him and the other members of the family. They hire a woman, a worker, to clean the room. and she comes, she cleans the room because Greta no longer cleans the room. See, it is like this. There was this ripple effect of that love Greta had for her brother for some time. It lasted a few days. See, when you love someone, even if something very bad happens to that someone, you may continue to love him or her for a few days. I mean, love does not come with a kind of a permanent warranty as such. It always has this expiry date written over it. So it doesn't last long because it becomes a burden for every one of them. This kind of a life, new form of life. They can no longer feel comfortable living with an insect. And it's proving to be very demanding. So what are they going to do now? Now, after this incident or Samsa's misadventure of just straying into the living room, being spotted by one of the lodgers, they decide that it is time for Gregor Samsa to leave. They want a happy end. They want a happy ending to this particular story. How can this particular story can end on a happy note? Because see, whenever a crisis hits us, we hope that things will resolve themselves and everything will end on a happy note. How things will resolve themselves and how there will be a happy ending to everything, we have no idea. We know next to nothing about how actually the process will happen. But we all strongly believe that God has always intended a happy ending for us. We believe that this is the purpose of life. Right. So what is the object towards this world is moving towards being everyone very happy. Now, somehow they hope that things will improve on their own and all of them will go back to their normal life. And they realize that this is quite possible only if Gregor Samsa simply walks away from the scene. See, there was a time when all of them wanted him so badly. All of them wanted him to work. All of them wanted him to be part of their life. All of them were so dependent on him. And now, all of them want him out of their life. He overhears it. I mean, this is what actually the last straw which breaks the camel's back. Samsa overhears it, goes back to his room, and stops eating and dies. As Eliot said, the world will end not on a boom but on a whimper. This is how life ends, right? There will be no celebration. there will be nothing, right? All of us die in these tiny corners of the earth, and all of us die so anonymously that not even our neighbors would know. Only after our having been dead for a couple of months, they will realize that, oh, something is not being seen regularly. Gregor Samsa dies, and family is, of course, happy. There is no proper funeral. You don't give a funeral to insects. Doesn't really matter what was that insect before it became an insect, what was in its previous life. An insect is an insect. So you may claim that you were, whatever you were, you believe you were in a previous life, but in this life, all of us like insects, right? Not more important than insects, nor more important or indispensable or relevant than insects. As significant or insignificant as cockroaches. So the insect is dead, not Gregor Samsa. They no longer see him as Gregor Samsa. They don't even call him Gregor Samsa. Insect. Insect is dead. So no proper funeral, no Christian funeral for it, of course. It's not even Christian or Jewish. So they asked this woman, the one who cleans the room, to get rid of the body. That woman gets rid of the body, and once she gets rid of the body, all of them decide that it's a long time since they have been happy. So they need some kind of a celebration. They go out of home, they take a tram, they travel on the train. Father and mother see their daughter, Greta. They have not noticed something. They were preoccupied with the thoughts of Gregor Samsa, the insect. Now their mind is free from it. They look at their daughter and realize that she has become a beautiful young woman. They must start looking for a groom for her. This is how the novella ends. What does it talk about? What does the novel talk about? Now, if you don't want to see, you won't see anything. Right? People always change. And people change beyond recognition. People do not become real insects in appearance, but they behave like insects. And these changes reflect the kind of the kind of a change that has come about inside. But how Gregor Samsa is to be understood. Very often, Kafka talks about his father. His father was a very difficult man to handle. He always tried to control son's life. He always tried to control his son's life. Kafka always felt restrained, right? Because whatever he did in life, whatever he wanted to do, wherever he went, he always felt the presence of his father having some kind of a very restrictive influence on him. He never felt free. And this is what he always wanted to acquire, absolute freedom. Somehow he always felt that there was no way he was going to feel free. His father was one way dominant, overpowering influence on him that there was no way he could ever bring himself to feel free. And he always felt this pressure. He wrote a few letters to his father because he could not talk to, he did not have enough courage to talk to his father. So he wrote a number of letters to his father expressing his sentiments. Of course, his father did not read these letters. Father always treated him like a child. Father could never think that his son had a mind of his own. His father could never come around to see the point that his son was an autonomous individual. And this strained relationship between father and son is central to understanding metamorphosis. I just read a few things which he wrote. Kafka wrote about his father, right? A couple of things. What did he say? You raised me with vigor. Kafka writing this in his letters to his father. You raised me with vigor, noise, and a hot temper. This is how you brought me up. Everything you try to do, right, in relation to me, you did with a great deal of vigor, but also there was no need for you to be that assertive. So you wanted to just stomp me with your authority. As a father, you have been too strong for me, and for that I was much too weak. As a father, you have always been too strong for me, and I was very weak. I could not protest. I could not become, because of your presence, because of the overwhelming authority you exerted, I could not become an independent, normal human being. This is what you have made of me. This feeling of being nothing that often dominates me comes largely from your influence. I feel like an insect. Why Gregor Samsa becomes an insect? Kafka always felt it, that his father and his presence left him feeling that he was absolutely nothing. He was nothing but an insect. No authority, no power, nothing. Right. You really only encourage me in anything when you yourself are involved in it. So whenever you want me to do something, you want me to do it because remember, you are involved in it. Only when you are involved in it. You wanted me to be like you. You wanted me to be your replica. You wanted me to be your clone, a weaker version of it. That is why I have become this kind of a absolutely spineless, insignificant human being. This is exactly how Gregor Samsa feels. The kind of a pressure he feels from the family, being made to work, being constantly demanded to be present in their lives, to be center of their existence, because the life of all these three characters revolved around the life of Gregor Samsa before he becomes an insult. You really own. I was weighed down by your mere physical presence. I was skinny, weakly, slight, you strong, tall. I was weighed down by your mere physical presence. I was skinny, weakly, slight, you strong, tall, broad. I felt a miserable specimen. This is what Kafka writes to his father. This is how he felt. He felt that he did not exist. His father reduced him to a non-entity. And this always pained him. And this is central to the nature of this relationship, is central to understanding Kafka's work. And how Kafka felt like an insect, a vermin. Samsa finds that he is no longer someone with an independent will. Somebody who can take control of his own life, start an action, do things independently. Because there is this huge burden of family. It is a real constraint that reduces him to the status of an insect. There is no point in going into debating, going into this question of whether it is possible for someone to become an insect. But it is known to every one of us that all of us at certain points in life feel like insects, helpless, powerless, completely out of control. Now, this is exactly how some feels. And now there are a few more things about what he said. He says this. See, you have struggle between two individuals when they are slightly equal. What if they are not equal to each other? Between us, there was no real struggle. I was soon finished off. What remained was flight, embattlement, melancholy, and inner struggle. We never had real fight. I was no match for him. There was no way I could fight. I mean, he's not talking about physical fight because of a clash of wills. Father had a powerful will. He wanted to have the things his own way. So he always commanded my life. The struggle was in. I had to constantly fend him off. The sense of embattlement, as if remember you are constantly under siege. It's like you are trapped. See, how does a trapped rat feel? You know, it is absolutely powerless, waiting for its death. Right? A rat imprisoned, caught in a trap. It is completely powerless. Its will has been taken away from it. There are no options before it. It's waiting for death, which will certainly come. You look at Samsa, imprisoned in this room within four walls. He is like a rat, like an insect, captured. Right? His will has been gradually taken away from him. His will to act no longer independent, no longer free. So you have this sense, finally what happens? You are overwhelmed with this feeling of melancholy, feeling of you turn me into a mistrust of myself, a perpetual anxiety about everything else. You made me feel so uncertain about everything. You made me mistrust myself. This is what Kafka tells his father. You made me mistrust myself. I have no faith in myself. My ability, I have no confidence. Now, Look at these things. We do not know whether samsa changes. We do not know whether the insect changes internally. Even after the transformation, samsa does not change. Samsa is samsa till the end. Very humble, very polite, very passive, this, very eager to please others. Somebody who has this terrible sense of responsibility, who wants to be of use to others. In this novella of 50 pages, you do not find him anyway feeling any rancor towards any one of his family members. But he understands why they are no longer what they used to be before he became an insect. So how do you understand this particular novella being titled Metamorphosis? Whose metamorphosis, whose change or transformation Kafka is talking about? All other members of the family change. Kafka does not. Samsa does not change, but others do change. You know how father treats Samsa. Now, see, till yesterday, he was the sole breadwinner of the family, and today the father uses a walking stick to deal with it. And very, very important is this, the wall that separates the family from Samsa. So, Samsa does not change, but the other family members change. Rita, who was a very loving sister, somehow actually this love lingers very feebly for some time, but even that simply evaporates after a week or so. And mother somehow gets reconciled to the fact that now all is over between herself and her son, between the son and mother, all is over. So there is no way she can treat him as her son. That relationship no longer exists. And father is the first to remember. Simply understand this kind of a rupture in the relationship in very clinical terms. The moment he sees his son has an insect, he knows this is over. It's no longer what he used to be, and it can never be the same. So now he is quite useless. He's a real burden, and now he becomes a burden. Samsa becomes a burden on everybody. Everybody is trying to push him back, because their own spaces are expanding. This is since very interestingly described by Kafka in the novella. When they decide to take 3 boarders, there are extra pieces of furniture which they do not know what to do with. So they take these pieces of furniture And remember, dump these pieces in Samsa's room now, because actually that room has become a kind of a storage place where you dump all unnecessary, useless, broken things. Samsa is nothing more than a chair with a broken ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಂಟ್, ಅದು UPS. So this is how, remember, all these three characters transform. Samsa does not change. Samsa very slowly reconciles himself to this condition. There is a gradual withdrawal on the part of him, and there is this moment when he decides to die, because the moment they talk to one another that it is time for Samsa to leave so that they can lead a very normal, comfortable life, then he knows that he has become a kind of a big burden. So he decides to die. So this is how it comes about, because I do not want to go into